So the next session is selling medical devices. And when you're in selling medical devices, it's not about just selling a product. It's about building trust, building a relationship with your customers, not just the physicians that are going to be implanting or using the products. It's a way of navigating the hospital and building relationship and trust with the whole staff of the hospital. So we have three amazing studs up here that have very tenured and some less and more tenured than others. So they'll give very different experiences. Dave, why don't you start off and introduce yourself?
Fortune 100 companies, startups, everything in between. Currently, I'm with a division of J&J in heart recovery.
Hi, I'm Adam Baker. I am class of 2024. Got my doctorate here last year in the bioengineering department. Moved into medical devices with Boston Scientific and their electrophysiology program. And my territory's up here in the upstate, and I love coming back to Clemson.
Hi, I'm Daniel Richards. I am not a Clemson graduate. I graduated from Georgia Tech. I've got about 25 plus years in medical device, MedTech, startup, early stage, and Fortune 50. And just glad to be here and talk to you a little bit about the medical device sales and I'd say medical device and MedTech all together.
Thank you, guys. And I'm Manning Hanser. I lead a neurosurgery company now for the last 5 years. But before that, I was a commercial executive with a few other companies. I work in what we call the body's plumbing. So anything of arterial and venous, I usually do it from the body all the way to the brain. So guys, I say we start with the foundation of what the students might want to know is what type of medical device jobs are out there? It seems like when we speak to the students from Clemson, they only think of like Arthrex, like our boy Lane came from. Arthrex is just here in their face all the time. I know Professor Jennifer Hogan has brought in multiple different other companies to get different experiences. So what type of medical devices are there? Anything from dental, disposable, capital? Why don't you talk, Dave, about it?
Yeah, I would say don't limit yourself. Manning's point, dental, capital sales, outside of orthopedics, a lot of people break into med device with clinical roles, not necessarily sales roles, and that can be cardiology specific. I know people who have wanted to get into med device and they've gone and sold lead. So if you're working in the OR in the cath lab, you have to protect your body from the radiation. And anything to break in to, number one, to get sales experience. Number two, if you can get that in med device right out of school, more power to you. But there's just a whole host of opportunities. I mean, I could spend the whole 50 minutes giving a list on that. But I was talking to a young man this morning who was dead set on orthopedics. And I said, just cast a big net. Get out there on LinkedIn, on the internet, and just research it and cast a big net just to ensure you get that first spot.
Yeah, I'll have to piggyback on what he said. He said everything. It just cast your net real wide because there's so many different companies out there in terms of medical devices. I mean, even from dental, we say dental devices, but they're really a type of medical device as well. So if you got any dentists out there, don't tag me on that, but they are.
What's the difference between selling disposables, selling implants, and then selling capital equipment? What's the difference, if you guys can kind of explain? Because right now, again, they might only think of, just like the young man that you talked to, he thinks of, oh man, I want to sell orthopedic sales. I want to be in the OR fixing knees. Explain them the difference between those three: disposable, implants, capital equipment.
Guess I'm up. Yeah, so if you're talking about capital, I mean, in medical device sales, you got capital where you're selling, essentially you're selling to the OR and various devices. You can sell into any part of the hospital, really, when we're talking about capital. Sales cycle is going to be a lot longer. And I don't want to go into the other question he's going to ask, but the sales cycle is going to be a lot longer. And if you're working for a actual company, it's going to carry a heavy quota as well. So now the other device, I guess we refer to them as sort of like disposable devices. I mean, there's supplies. So they're going to be, in some sense of the word, easier to sell, meaning that I said easy. I said slightly now, slightly easier, because the sales cycle may not be as long, but once you have that relationship, it's continuous. It's continuous sales because they're just reordering. You set them up on a reordering track, software, whatever, and they just continue to reorder. But in terms of the devices or the capital side, capital takes a little longer. I mean, the reward is big too, but it takes a little longer and it's a little bit more methodical. I don't know how deep you want me to go into this thing. Okay. All right. And I think that's it.
Appreciate it. So let's take it to the next level. What's the difference? Again, I've spoken to a few students already earlier, and then they're jaded by the big names, Medtronic, Stryker, Arthrex. So those are manufacturers. That's what we all would love to go and directly work for right out of college. I get it. But there's other ones that are subsets, which are called distributors. So can you guys explain to the students what's the difference between working for a direct manufacturer as opposed to a distributor?
Yeah, so I think I'm not going, the manufacturers, Manny mentioned them, all the names you know of, and they hire, full-time employees, W-2 employees to market and sell their devices. The distributors are 1099 reps. I never took that route in my career, but I recruited them and managed the national sales force of 1099s. So distributors are like a big group of 1099. So a 1099 is a self-employed salesperson who you have a company, like we had a Swiss company that was bringing in a balloon for the cath lab, and they needed a network of salespeople. And so we contracted with 1099s who have relationships in their parts of the country. They sell into the hospital and they pick up multiple products to carry in their bag. If they're in the cath lab, they might have a guide extension, they might have a balloon, they might even have a stent. And they're selling directly, they're sustaining themselves, they're self-employed. Distributor, I was thinking about that this morning through a conversation. CrossLink is a big orthopedic distributor in the Southeast. They're not manufacturing any med devices, at least I don't believe they are, but they're a distributor for the manufacturing company, whether that be Stryker or Arthrex, and they have a designated territory, however big that might be, a couple states. With that comes expectations and selling products and revenue. And so as long as they can meet the expectations of the manufacturer, they get to maintain that distributorship. Is that clear enough?
Great.
Yeah, okay.
All right, so let's get them, so start getting some more advice questions. So when you want to go in to break into medical device sales, obviously you have to be passionate about helping patients. Sometimes I feel like the money factor jades us, but you will never last if that's the only thing that's motivating you. You would want the sole passion of helping patients is going to get you through there. So that being said, what can students do now? So the juniors and seniors that are trying to prepare themselves for the interviews, and how do they make themselves better now so when they're ready to graduate and try to get into a medical device sales job, what can they do to help themselves prepare?
Yeah, I think maybe the most clear thing you could do is like find someone that's in the field that you know, take them out, buy them a cup of coffee and ask what's going on in the field. Because when you're looking at the job boards and you're looking at the news, it's a picture of what's going on in the field. But if you ask like, hey, what companies are moving quickly, who's hiring a lot, why are they hiring a lot? Like if you just look at how many open positions there are, it doesn't give you the whole picture. So if you can get some inside knowledge from your friend, when you go in for that interview, you're going to sound a lot more intelligent than people that just look at, what's in New York Times, what's on Forbes, what's going on in the field. I think you'll just sound a lot more intelligent, and you'll just really stand out in that interview. So that's what I would suggest. Get some inside knowledge from people that are in the clinic or on the management side as well.
Guess I'll add to that. Yeah, it's great. And I think Adam's walked right down the road of what we need to hear in that regard. I'll add one thing. One of the things you can think about doing as students, I go to tons of conferences every year. And at conferences, Some of them will allow students to come in for, if not free, a very nominal fee. And so you're on the ground right there with the VP of sales for a lot of these major companies, and you can have a one-on-one conversation with them about that. And most of the time they will chat with you because they see the energy in a young person's, a college student's eyes, and they want to get in the industry. So that's another thought for you.
Fantastic advice. Okay, let's just build on it. Just sure.
Yeah, this is a passion of mine. I'm number one, I'm super impressed with this program and the individual conversations I've had with students. I joke around, but seriously, when I was here, I was just scraping by to get a degree, and then I wanted to get out and sell something. But what you guys are doing to prepare yourself to get into industry is, number one, impressive. Number two, to these points, like the company or the division of the company I work for, to Manning's point earlier, is recovering hearts and saving lives. It's not about, sure, we have shareholders we need to answer to, we have revenue targets we need to hit, but find something that you're passionate about. And when you get into these conversations, whether it's an interview or a cup of coffee, just, let that passion shine through. And again, a conversation this morning, I was telling a young man, I said, surely your mom and dad know an orthopedic surgeon. Just, let them get you in touch with them and say, hey, can I come shadow you in the clinic for a day? And just, anything you can do to set yourself apart from the rest, whatever that might be. I mean, there are a million ideas like that, but and that bleeds through when you're talking about your passion. You can point to things you've done to prepare yourself for these opportunities.
Love it. Okay. Go down to now the freshmen and the sophomore and the juniors that are here. They're not about to graduate. What are the things that they can do to help with their experiences that are going to help with you? That say they're going to be interviewing with you in a couple of years. So what type of things should they be doing now with experiences? And then what type of skills should they be working on? i.e. public speaking, maybe getting involved with their fraternity or clubs.
I think kind of like flavor all your experiences. You look at your resume, like I really don't want to read every single line on your resume. I mean, that's just where I'm coming from. If you can turn like each of like your whatever paragraph, your 2-3 sentences, like, hey, this is related to this skill, and this little paragraph that I wrote proves that I have this skill. Like if you can take that into like 3 bullets and like back it up with like an actual story, not just like, hey, I did senior design, therefore I know how to write an FMEA. Like that's fine, but I want to know more. I want you to prove that you can back that up. And the second thing I would add is that every single interaction you have is an interview, right? We did an event from Boston Scientific in the bioengineering department last semester. I had a guy that's now the VP for North and South Carolina. I've got an experienced mapper. I've got another guy that's same level as I am. 100%. We were looking at those resumes you handed to us, and some were already tossed out. You didn't know it was an interview, but we didn't even read it because of an interaction that we had. And it might sound unfair, but we have 300 applications and we only have 2 positions, and we're going to take every single interaction with you as an opportunity to make that a little bit easier. So literally every interaction you have, whether it's at a conference or a phone call or a cup of coffee, is an interview.
I don't know that I have anything else to say. They said it all.
Yeah, for the freshman and sophomore, get sales experience. I don't care what it is. If you're selling retail, if you're selling whatever, because sales translates, and you can translate that when you're having that interview. Selling's about getting your customer to like you, know you, trust you. I don't care what you're selling. Just get some sort of experience. Ideally, if you can land one of these, I'm drawing a blank, internships throughout the summer, which sound like they're very, very competitive, even better. But just get experience that then you can translate in that experience into what you want to do in the long run.
Love it. See, you're taking the first step by being here, which is amazing, right? I'm just going to tell you from my experiences, when I'm looking at resumes for, let's just say, early stage medical device sales that are going to be clinical specialists that are going to help our sales reps, which we would hire from guys like you guys, is when I'm looking through a resume, I'm looking at how involved you were. I don't care about how many video games you play a day and when. That does not help me at all. It's how involved you were and how engaging you were. To Dave's point, how many internships you have and how translatable those internships were. For example, are you being told no in your internship? Are you trying to sell something and you're being denied and told no? And how do you overcome and try to turn that into a yes? That is a huge thing for us and for a huge thing for you guys to learn early on. So we're not training you just not how to navigate a hospital, but then we have to teach you how to absorb denials. So getting that experience is amazing, and putting that on your resume would be a huge win. Okay, so B2B sales. When we're talking about the internships and maybe the co-ops or whatever they're doing, how important is B2B, having that B2B and sales experience that can translate into a medical device sales job?
I think that's very important, and I think Dave kind of hit on that. Dave? Oh, I got scared there for a minute. Dave hit on that in his when he spoke a few minutes ago. B2B, business sales, is very important, and as he indicated, you want to sell something because they want to see, on the medical device side, they want to see numbers in some cases. They want to see what was your, if you're working for an organization, the quota carrying numbers. So they need to see something that says you actually closed something and you hit your quota in that regard, because they're very lineal in that respect. But also, they want to see as much experience, because if you're selling, I'm going to give you an example that's probably way out there, but if you're selling high-end copiers and you go to a medical device company and you want to sell patient monitoring or you want to sell imaging equipment, now I can see the crossover between the high-end copiers and imaging equipment. So those things matter as well. But as they, again, eloquently pointed out, you have to have some sort of, or it helps to have some sort of sales experience on your resume. And then hit your LinkedIn page. Your LinkedIn page should, I don't want to jump into the other question, but it should tell the story in that regard as far as your sales is concerned. That's it.
Good. Okay, so perfect. Great segue, Daniel. So, look, social media, if social media was present when I was your guys' age, I would not be here, trust me. But it is here. And so we need to way to mitigate your social media presence. One thing that we do when we're looking at hiring people, we obviously scour the internet for any type of social media. I've heard horror stories of the most brilliant sales reps getting the jobs, and then they found out, they dug deep in their like Facebook page and they found some inappropriate things. So guys, what is your advice for that? Like, how do we help the students kind of mitigate their social media presence? Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, now TikTok, whatever this is. So how do we help them? And what are you guys seeing when you're hiring people? Are you guys doing those type of searches?
I think it's okay to be a kid and post silly things on the internet. That's fine. I think there's obviously clear lines that are like, yeah, you shouldn't have posted that. Like, I think usually when you see like controversy, I think it's usually for most people really obvious, like, hey, that was a pretty horrible thing or whatever. I generally think that less is more. I was never a very big social media guy, so maybe I'm not the guy to answer this, but I think if you post less or not at all, hard to get in trouble for that. And I know that some people think it kind of annoying, even if you're posting like a ton of like very relevant like MedTech or even papers on like LinkedIn, you're like blitzing like 10, 15 posts a day. I think for some people it's too much. That's some perspective I've heard from the field, but that's my 2 cents.
Okay.
Okay.
All right, let's get back to networking, because this is why we're here today, is networking. I have a fun story. So my brother worked for Arthrex and now works for Shoulder Innovations. But when he was trying to break in, he went to Florida State, which is one of his big problems. But when he was trying to break into medical device sales, he was a dog. And what he would do is he would sit out in the parking lots of the hospitals. And then he would see the reps carrying the bags back there. He would chase them down and give him his resume and say, I want to be in, I'll do anything it takes. So that's just one amazing example in how he broke in, because it is extremely, extremely competitive. We're getting hundreds of resumes a day, and we're not even hiring, but still getting them. So guys, what can they do to network? And what I mean by is, do they find headhunters, recruiters? I think someone brought up going to family, friends, physicians and getting referrals through there. What can they do?
Yeah, I think the example of Manning's brother might be a bit much. I don't know if I would recommend that, but clearly it worked for him. In terms of networking, obviously, I mean, state the obvious, events like this, internships. Again, you all know someone in med device, I would assume. If you don't, you know someone who's in med device. And whether you know it or not, and just starting to have conversations. Adam said it earlier, reaching out to, if you live in Greenville, reaching out to Adam, say, hey, can we grab a cup of coffee at Prisma one morning between cases, and just learning more. And then like I mentioned earlier, if you have family, friends, or acquaintances that are physicians that maybe can provide some guidance, there's no wrong answer to that. I don't think you can do too much networking. You can do, keep picking on your brother. You don't want to overdo it, to like Adam's point on overposting on LinkedIn. And, we all have those people where I see it, I'm like, I think I'll snooze that person for a couple months. I've seen enough of their commentary. But just over and over again, physicians, friends, et cetera. Just networking is the key. And it's all about for me, breaking in. So full disclosure, I got a forestry degree from Clemson. Like, I should not be in med device, 25 plus years in med device. And when I decided to break into healthcare, it was just, interview after interview until I got in front of the right person and we connected. So it's a numbers game. And it's the same with networking. And you'll find that right person, trust in that, and just keep going through the process.
Yeah, I am trying to get free coffee out of this, but that is like the best thing to do, I think, is to like just get a little bit of extra knowledge, meet up with people that you know. That'll be really, really helpful. Like I said earlier, it'll help you stand out. I was not planning on doing medical devices. I was like full on, I'm going to go be a professor. I did the education certificate. I had a postdoc. That was like my dream school. I was going to do it. And then I found the right person I found a guy at Boston Scientific that I was like, if I go into industry, I'm willing to work for this guy. We had a great connection. We talked afterwards. We met up on LinkedIn, and that's what it was. It was a good connection. I trusted him, and that's really how it happened. So if you can make a good impression on those non-interview interviews, that's the way. That's going to be the best path, in my opinion. That was what is for me, at least.
I would add to that. I'm going to go back and just touch lightly the LinkedIn portion of it. Localize your LinkedIn. In other words, if you know individuals that are in your area that are close, that are in the medical field, reach out to those guys, because a lot of times, I mean, I've had cups of coffee with individuals that were local in my neighborhood that I didn't even know. I mean, you go into a Starbucks, it's safe, a Starbucks or wherever, a coffee shop, and you can chat with them for a few minutes and give them, impart some knowledge upon them, give them some information, what you have. And so that's what you might want to look at as students, is trying to make those local connections. Obviously, if you know somebody across country, that's good too, but think about it locally and then start to branch out.
Right. Okay. You guys are in all different types of industries of medical devices. What are the different types of sales cycles? Because what we think the students might be misaligned on how grueling the sales cycle is, and now dealing with our friends in the value analysis committees of hospitals. So let's get into the ugly truths, right? Like, let's get in like how grueling it is, because some of the students might not want to do some of this, and this would be a great time for them to learn so they can pivot.
Right. Okay. I'll start with it, and then I'll kind of toss this over to those guys, because I'm sure they've got a lot to say as well. He said the right word. It's grueling. I mean, some sales cycles are from, especially on the medical device side, it could be 12 months to 18 months. And we're talking about a hospital system. Now, if you jump into an ASC, sorry, I'm dyslexic today, ASC, then you're talking 3 to 6 months. They'll make the decision faster, but they won't buy as much. So yeah, in that regard, if you're talking medical device companies, Now, obviously, if you're on the other side, meaning that you're an independent rep, they spoke about, you can carry several brands, and your sales cycle is gonna vary depending on what brand is. But in the medical device field, yes, it's a long sales cycle. It's a process you got to go through. He spoke about the committees and all that, so you have to go through that process. And then it's probably about, I would say, just short of 6 steps that you have to step through until you get to a point where you're doing where you're actually doing installation.
I think, so when you're selling a medical device, and I'm probably missing some categories here, but number one, and I don't mean anything by this, you might have a Me Too product. So you have a product that there are already 6 of them in the hospital, and you just want a piece of that business. You're trying to take market share. So you got to know your value proposition. What's the price point? What's the return on the investment for the customer? And all this stuff goes into value analysis committees for the different departments where they decide, hey, is widget F as good as widget B? Is it worth bringing it in? Does it make sense economically for the hospital? Even if you have a groundbreaking new technology that no one else on the market has, which sounds wonderful, right? What's your value proposition? What's the economics to the stakeholders in the hospital in terms of finance? The physician might be your biggest champion, and he or she has to have that new widget, that groundbreaking technology. But at the end of the day, as much as I hate to say it, it is a business. So where it has the potential maybe to change patient lives. If the hospital is losing $30,000 a case, maybe they're going to pass on it in the short term and wait till reimbursement changes for that particular device if there is no reimbursement. I've been in all areas of this cycle with all the types of products, but it's a long, tough process at times. Sometimes not, and you enjoy those when it's quick. But yeah, it's all over the map.
Great. Okay, guys, let's open up some questions. I know you guys have to have some questions here.
Yeah, so you guys talked a little bit about like the translation of just understanding sales and having sales experience to then getting into the medical device space. I'm a recent graduate and an MBA student who's got a little bit of sales experience from candy to software through internships, but I've nothing in the medical device space and no undergraduate degree in that. What's some advice you'd give to someone like myself who's got more of a sales background but less technical medical background?
I'll use my middle son is 25. He graduated Citadel with a business degree, went to work for ScanSource in Greenville, which is a software company. Did that for a year, and now he's selling sports medicine for Smith & Nephew. So to my point earlier, just sell something, whatever it takes. And then you got to be able to tell your story. Why med device? What translates from your current, what you're currently selling to med device, and all this talk we had about networking and finding a mentor who can help coach you through that and help you see things you don't see, that your experience would bring value to that med device company. Again, learning how to take a no, building relationships, building trust with customers. This is all sales, whatever you're selling.
Yeah, so I'm in the clinical space. I go to work in scrubs every single day. I'm in the operating room, and you're going to hear the word trust a lot. I think there are effectively 2 ways, at least from my perspective, is you can be an awesome salesman by knowing what your doctor wants, what safety concerns that they're thinking about for their patient, and you can just go down the list. I'm going to check. I'm going to go all the things that you care about. I'm going to know. The other way, I think, is to be the brainiac in the room. What I would suggest is, if you can, shadow a case and write down every single thing that happens, and then say, what's going on here? If you don't know it, figure it out. Because the next time you're in that room, they could ask you, hey, can I use this butterfly valve with your product? And if you're just standing there like, I don't know, 2 seconds, doctor already doesn't trust you. You need to be on it every single time. And I know that sounds scary, but I'll be honest, there are some reps that, like, personality, kind of a dud, but they are the smartest person in the room. It's the rep, right? Every single person, from the anesthesia tech to the doctor to the nurses to the nurse tech, every single one of them will say, like, hey, if the doctor doesn't know it, I'm going to ask this rep. And that guy has the cushiest job in the business because he's going to sit in that operating room for 30 years. And he's going to make a ton of money, but he's also going to deliver safe and effective procedures every single time. So in short, bring a notebook, write down every step.
Love that advice on what they should do. Is there anything that they should not do so to get the job? So make you think a little bit while you're thinking. I think there's one for me, and I'm not calling this out bad. It's not bad at all. But when there's a difference between medical device salespeople and pharmaceutical reps. Does everyone know that? There's pharmaceutical reps and device. And so we see, I'm sure you guys do, you guys get a lot of pharmaceutical reps that want to get into medical device. I am not saying that we would never hire them, but they learn different mindsets and skills that are not too transferable into our world. So that would be one thing I would say is maybe a red flag. Is there any other red flags that they need to watch out for?
So yes, if I heard the question right, there is a difference, or the comment, the statement right, difference between pharmaceutical reps and medical device reps. We used to call them detailers because they just simply went into the office and ordered. Nothing wrong with that. That's the style of their sales. They went in, they walked into offices, and they sold, or in the hospitals, they sold, basically took orders. A medical device rep, you're going to go in and you have to kind of go through these cycles. You have to carry that customer through sales cycles and try to do soft closes somewhere along the way to see if they're still tracking. Not only that, one of the things I would say to add to that, and there's light at the end of the tunnel. So think about organizations that have matrix sales organizations. So what they do in a matrix sales organization is that they will essentially, that's almost like an unofficial training program, because you've got several reps that will descend upon that hospital system, and you've got a lead rep, like an executive, account executive that has that relationship. And while you may be, I'm going to say at the bottom of the food chain, you just got in, but your quota could be 6 million. And so they're going to help you make that quota in a matrix sales organization. You're not the Lone Ranger out there by yourself trying to close a $12 million deal. So some thought in that regard, but I just wanted to add that.
Hey, my name is Adam Kleinmeyer, and I am looking to go into medical device sales. Y'all talked a lot about how to prepare as a student to enter the industry. My question kind of comes from when looking at these major medical device companies, what are certain aspects that a student should look for when deciding what employer to work for?
That is a pretty tough question. You're saying, who do I work for? My personal experience was I met a guy that I trusted. I asked him some hard questions, and he didn't shy away from them. And I knew that this was going to be in a sales adjacent role. And the fact that he just headed them straight on and didn't feel like a salesman made it more enticing for me. It meant that I felt like I could trust him and that I could work for this guy. I think that's, I don't know, Adam, I feel like that's going to be a pretty personal question. What are you looking for? I think you're going to find good and bad in every company, is my guess, especially these large ones. Like, I don't know how many employees Medtronic at J&J's got, several million. I think you need to find the right group. I wouldn't say company, I would say find the right territory that has a system and a network that is wanting you to succeed and that you can trust.
I would always, when you're in an interview, ask about the company culture. And not only that, if you're interviewing with a regional sales director, say, all right, I hear about the company culture. How do you run your little organization, that small part, that region of the country? And that'll give you a lot of insight in the terms of, if it's a good fit for you. And again, if you have a particular passion, whether it's cardiology, vascular surgery, interventional radiology, I mean, the list goes on, begin to narrow it down there to a company who is, focused on the area you think you want to go into. And if you can get into that area, great. But ask a lot of questions about culture, their management style, what does it take to be a winner and a leader on your team? And you'll quickly get insight into terms of how they run their business.
Yeah, so I'm an outsider looking in on the panel here, but I've hired a lot of salespeople, and we've always gone through 2 cycles: can do, will do. Can you do it? Can you study? Can you learn? Can you be a clinical expert? We've talked about it. Can you wake up at 5 a.m. and go to grand rounds? Can you cover a case on the weekends? Can you get in? Can you sit in an OR? Some people don't like the sight of blood. You know, these are some very specific, can you do this? You have to ask yourself that. And then on the other side of the fence, will you do it? Will you make yourself get up at 5 a.m. and go to cover that case? Will you leave a date and go cover a case? We know people, I mean, I will interview spouses as part of this interview process. When you are hiring for a medical device sales position, it is a very difficult process to get into because it is a lifestyle. Personally, I worked in orthopedic trauma for 27 years. It is a life commitment. I mean, our salespeople are on 24/7, 365. You have to get up Christmas morning, go cover a case. So it is just, you have to make that commitment. And not only do you have to make that commitment, your family makes a commitment to you taking on that lifestyle. Now, they've said the rewards are great. Not only do you sit down and you see the patients and you see the surgeons and you see things and you celebrate great outcomes, you make a good living, but you make tremendous sacrifices to do it. And you have to be able to say, I will do that. And your family has to say, I will do that. And that can do's, that's just, you're smart enough, you're able enough, you're lucky enough to go do it. That's the easy part. The will do of sales, that's the tough part. So I think that's what you have to ask yourself before you go through all of these interviews, all of this cycle, and get into it. Tremendously rewarding job, but it's a commitment.
Professor, I love it. Oh, I know we got another question. Let's let the other ones. While we're getting to this, I do really like, so I was on stroke call in my early days. So my wife and I, whenever we'd go out with our kids and dinner, we'd take 2 separate cars because I would have to leave when I get called in for a stroke. So talk about the sacrifices I've did. It's true.
Hi, my name is Madeline Axon, and I have more experience in medicine versus sales. So what advice would you give to the student who feels late to the game with sales? And what would you advise them in moving forward to get more experience into sales and combining those interests?
Coming from a guy who has no medical background, I'm always envious of the people on the sales team who have the medical background. With the company I currently work for, probably 60% of our field team is nurses out of the CCU, nurses out of the ICU, surgery techs. There's such value in what someone like yourself, Madeline, brings to an organization with the medical background. And that's just, if you don't have the opportunity to get, I keep talking about that sales experience. If you don't have the opportunity to get that and you got to start interviewing, then you just pivot. You know, I have a passion for people. I have a passion for sales. And oh, by the way, I happen to have all this experience on the medicine side. So if the personality's a fit and the background's a fit, many, many companies are going to see a lot of value in that just as much as they do someone with a ton of sales experience. So I wouldn't discount that whatsoever.
I got something really quick. I think take that knowledge and that ability to study and try to turn it onto yourself. You feel that like my personality maybe isn't super suited, or my communication style isn't suited for sales. Like study yourself and figure out, what am I doing in my interactions with my friends, my family, that is maybe going to make it a little bit difficult to get into sales because I don't feel like I have that experience and background. I'm a little long-winded sometimes, right? You can tell, but you can't do that in an OR. The OR doctor wants an answer. He does not want an that lasts more than 200 milliseconds, right? I need to know immediately, and I can't go into a rant about in this paper that said this, but that's not what he wants. So I had to specifically temper myself. I had to figure out, okay, what's the principle that matters here? That matters is I know it, and then I know the answer immediately. I know what you're asking about. And they don't want a rant, they don't want a speech, they don't want a lecture, right? They want to know that you have the answer that they're looking for immediately. So that took time for me to get there. I mean, it literally took time and effort. I had to think about, what is Adam Baker doing right now that is not working in this situation? what can I do next time that'll be better? So just, study yourself kind of in a way.
Add one quick thing. One of the things you can think about doing is sales organizations or, large sales organizations have something called sales specialists. Sales specialists will walk into these hospital systems and do what they call in-services. So if you've got a clinical or medicine background, you are a great fit, I think, to walk in and say, hey guys, I've got this, I can do in-services to start with. Now to get you started.
This question, I'll just say something. I don't find it as a disadvantage. When we're looking at folks with medical backgrounds, that's a huge plus because that resonates with the customer. All the engineers that want to go into medical device, that's a benefit to us because you guys usually can explain the technical parts of the product better than Dave and I can that don't have engineering backgrounds. And then the third, for anyone that's in education, that we really look at teachers. So if teachers that want to come into medical device and they get their B&B sales from somewhere else, they're usually able to explain things better than most of us. So I don't find those type of education points disservice at all. It's just a way to harness it and figure it out and get it into medical device.
Hi, my name is Logan Swihart. I'm currently my third year here at Clemson, and I hope I have aspirations to attend law school later. So I want to combine the world of biotechnology and law. Where do you think someone who has a background in both law and biotechnology could fit into the world of sales?
You're going to do great. Yeah, it's that one, like, I don't know, 30 minutes into my biomedical engineering degree, I was told, hey, if you want to get into law, you're going to do awesome. They need tons of lawyers that can also understand the biomedical side. We just had a PhD from bioengineering department. I think it was Megan. She's going to go do law. She wants to get into patent law. And they want PhDs that can be able to go through the technical documents and being able to filter out, what specific claims are here. Can they back it up in the documentation? Does it fit into USPTO? So I think it's a great option. It's really, really good. How it fits into medical sales, like every single one of these companies has an army of lawyers that's trying to solidify their market and protect it. Yeah, I'm just saying, good job. Nice choice. You won't have a problem with it. Advice. You're doing great.
So no, you're going to be a big asset to anybody, right? So what we do as a CEO, I talk to attorneys every day, like you, where you're going to be. So IP, intellectual property, is a very big deal in our world as entrepreneurs. And then obviously we will talk about, give you away from sales for a second, but my advice to you is find a firm that specializes in medical device IP, intellectual property, and is doing those filings and provisionals and non-provisionals. We're going to go into another session, but that is a huge benefit. So not really too much sales, but that's what I would focus on if I were you. Yeah. Guys, any other final comments? One sentence, what they should do right now before they graduate to get into medical device sales. One word or one sentence.
Network.
Boom.
Yeah, buy me coffee.
Yes.
Yeah, Daniel took mine. Just network. It'll happen. It's a numbers game.
Perfect. Thank you, guys.